pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I've taken attendance and everybody is here today. Next is the minutes approval. The meeting minutes were distributed to the board. You may decide on how you'd like to move forward with those.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of the February 10th.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, the meeting minutes are approved. Next is public expression. I remind everyone that this is an opportunity for individuals to comment on matters involving Newport other than those pertinent to public hearings that day. The time reserved for public expression is not a question and answer period. If you need to address a specific situation and do not feel comfortable speaking at the meeting, you may contact me directly. Speakers will be limited to 2 minutes. Would anyone like to speak in public expression?
I would, if no one else to speak.
Go ahead, sir.
I want to say that the topic today is you cannot fix stupid. I missed the last meeting. You spoke with an engineer or an architect on the salt shed. He said that a 2x4 with screws was not the way to temporarily fix the building. It was done wrong. Then you spoke of electrical and how you could run, or he could run, from the back of the town barn over to the salt shed. But there's a problem. There's a church driveway in the way there, and you have a contract with them and you know that. So I think that needs a whole new service, okay? And he also said that it's a wooden structure, and after it's fixed, we might get 20 years out of it. Boy, that was a good investment, okay? You all voted, except for Bruckner and Rubin, to hire a code officer, a person that has no state license and must be overseen by a third party. Really? If you needed an operation, would you have a butcher cut you open and have it overseen by a third party? I don't think so, but I'm not sure. Is there anything in this town that you have done that has not turned into shit? Because believe it or not, everything you do turns into crap. And we have nothing but problems. So what I'd like you to do is tomorrow and the rest of your lives, in the morning, when you brush your teeth, comb your hair, look in the mirror and tell that person, "Good morning, stupid." Thank you.
Okay, would anyone else like to speak in public expression? No? Okay, if not, we'll move on to monthly reports. As usual, I go first. I'd like to report that I've been meeting with town residents during office hours on Mondays from 2:30 to 6 p.m. I encourage people to come stop by to visit with me or to schedule an appointment online if you have anything you'd like to talk about. I'd also like to report that I submitted the annual financial report to the state comptroller's office as is required 60 days after the start of the year for all municipalities. We'll be uploading that complete AFR to the town website in the interest of transparency. The one from 2023 is also on the website as well. I'd also like to report that town officials have been starting to get their new phone systems through Intermedia. There's only a few left who still need to do it, but this will help you reach town officials easier. They'll now have their town official numbers, be able to have that on their mobile phone, and they'll get voicemails that you leave them in their email inbox. So that will hopefully increase access to town employees for their residents. I'd also like to report that the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee met this month and had a productive meeting. The committee discussed different ways to reach out to our farmers that live in the town to learn about how they think the comprehensive plan from 2011 measured up against the things they wanted to do for farmers. The committee also talked about our community survey, which was sent out on Facebook and the town website earlier last week. That will also be published in the My Little Falls newspaper tomorrow, and will be published in the town newspapers in the coming days. We're also going to send out postcards with a QR code to the community survey to all the town residents. So we're hoping that we can get quite a few responses from this, because the way to plan for the future the best is when everyone has a say in it. I'd also like to share that we have the financial statements distributed to the board for their review. We also, our new accountant started doing full financial reports, budget versus actual, and those will be uploaded to the website as well, so people in the community can see how their tax dollars are being spent. But would anyone on the board like to make a motion to approve the financial statements?
I'll make a motion, we approve the financial statements.
Is there a second?
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Before we move on to the animal control officer, I'd like to have a brief discussion with the board about the Herkimer County Land Bank Corporation. This is something that Herkimer County created, I believe, last year to help different municipalities demolish unused buildings or abandoned buildings. Newport currently has 2 what they call zombie lots listed on their register, which is basically abandoned properties. I talked to the person from the Herkimer County in charge of the land bank, and they said that the town can help by creating a longer list of properties in the town that are abandoned or should be demolished. So, I mean, our codes officer is here. I think maybe throughout the next couple months or so, we can develop a longer list, because I do believe there are some, or there's more than 2. So, if anyone from the community has properties that they think we should know about, feel free to email the codes officer, and we'll start adding a running list. The way Herkimer County does this is they choose from all the different municipalities, and each year they select a certain amount. I think last year the city of Little Falls and a couple others got one, so the Newport's in a good position to hopefully maybe get one of them addressed next year. So
What does that mean? Addressed? They helped
yeah,
tearing it down?
they help tear it down. They have funding to do it.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, something that I've been getting back from residents is concern about the aesthetics of the town and properties that are just sitting there. So this is a way to help with that. So if you know of any properties, submit the list to Matt. Anyone else on the board have any thoughts about that?
They would tear down, say those, we were chosen, they would tear down the property, but then what happens to the vacant lot of the property still belongs to whoever that pays
Yeah,
taxes?
there's
for it?
different processes that it has to go through. I believe the town has to acquire ownership
Oh,
first, but
okay.
as we develop the list, I mean, that's a starting point, and we can go from there. based on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the animal control officer received 1 call this month. The full report will be on the website after this if you want to take a look at that. The assessor did not submit a report, but we do have a report from the Codes and Zoning Enforcement Officer. He's here, so I'll ask him to maybe talk about that a little bit for the board.
Absolutely, and probably the highlights, I don't want to call them highlights, but the 2 things that stuck out the most was the 2 building collapses in the township. Once the buildings collapsed, I was working with the Department of Labor, because if you have a collapsed building, it's considered a hot zone for asbestos. So Todd Cable and the Miners, Cable, I think it's called, were the 2 locations. Both of them had to deal with asbestos abatement. One did it by test. The other one's gonna do it by abatement while they do the demolition. I worked with the Department of Labor, a gentleman named David Conway, who has cleared everything. Demo permits have been issued for both sites, and they're gonna be taking place, I'm assuming in the coming weeks. They're gonna let me know when they actually start. Other than that, there was inquiries about different code questions, but nothing that really stood out of the ordinary. Happy to take any questions though.
Does anyone on the board have any questions?
Yeah, the only question I have is I noticed there's a demolition permit issued to Shannon McAvoy. He didn't need any of that.
So Shannon McAvoy was was the person who submitted. It was issued to Todd Cable.
Oh, okay, all right, he was just the issuing agent. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Next is the highway superintendent. Highway Superintendent Carney did submit a report saying that they've been working to repair the trucks, but also that they've been having some issues with this small pickup truck. So the highway superintendent got a quote for a new truck, but things that are over 10,000 we have to get multiple quotes for that. We do have funding in the highway savings and equipment reserve fund. I wanted to talk to you all about if maybe at our next meeting you'd like to consider purchasing a new truck and then selling that one.
Yeah, we talked about that last year, but because of COVID and the ability to purchase merchandise, we never did get a bid from anybody. Nobody
Right.
even responded, so we were aware of that last year.
Yeah, I think that's something to consider because we're starting to spend more money on repairing that. Than it's
Well, that's a
probably
good
worth.
idea.
Do you know what year that truck is?
Uh, yeah, I think Patty's
I
right.
think it's 17.
2017. Yeah, it has quite a few miles on it though. Okay, the other thing the highway superintendent wanted us to talk about is a sander. As we all know, in the spring there's a lot of sand on the roads. The town used to have a pull behind thing that was attached to one of the back of the trucks. The highway superintendent got a quote for one that goes on the front of a loader, and he'd like us to consider that. So Gary, during the summer while he's here full time, could help get some of the sand off of the roads. It would have to go through the same process as the truck, but it's something that we could consider at our next meeting.
So they just sweep it off the road, or does it pick up as well?
I don't know what this one does, but I think this one just might sweep it. But there are ones that collect it as well.
I don't think they have them collected, I think that's just sweet. I can use that as well.
Well, yeah, that just
Take
seems like
care
a
of the
good idea.
leaves, take care of the leaves.
Well, that would be an improvement. Because of that too.
Because this has been a tough winter, there's been a lot of salt and sand on the road.
Yeah.
Ever since from Christmas, for Christ's sakes, to Easter.
Before it's picking it up though. They just sweep it up, they just sweep it up.
And it goes on the front of the loader, our big loader.
Yeah, why waste it?
Wow.
Right.
So they're gonna run it all over every road.
So is that something that you think we should consider?
Well, you're gonna have to do something with the roads, because they'll look like the town has dirt roads, if you don't take care of the sand that's on there. Well, it might be, if you can find one that, or get a bid on one that also does.
Is this something we could share with another town?
Potentially.
Rather than waste the sand, we can use the sand next year. Save money.
And it already have the salt in
That's
it.
never gonna happen.
I've never seen one. Usually,
There is no such thing.
they put them in a windrow and a guy comes along with another thing that, another piece of equipment. But I think it's a good idea, because you're gonna have to do something with the roads.
Yeah, but you only got 9 miles of it.
Well, yeah, but we're gonna have to do something, but you're gonna have to pick up the sand, because
You might be able to,
sometimes sand, when it gets wet, is worse than trying to maneuver in salt. Or
It'd be cheaper to rent one than it would be to buy one.
well, you might be able to share with another town too.
Well, you gotta figure the cost of it.
Yeah, if you
If
could.
it's gonna pay itself back, it's worth it. If it doesn't cover its cost, it isn't worth it.
Can we all talk about this subject, or just?
A reminder to people that usually the board, the people that should be talking, other members are only supposed to talk during public expression.
Oh, damn.
Okay, so I'll look into those things and maybe at our next meeting we can talk about it more. The historian did not submit a report, but the town clerk did with fees collected for the month. That report will be available on the town website as well. We did not receive a report from the planning board chair, but Colleen is here today. Colleen, are there any updates you have for us?
No, we didn't have that month letter, but I did bring the form that you guys wanted to look at for the questionnaires for the farming. And I also brought in the guide that what Fulton and Montgomery counties uses and the map that they have,
Okay,
so that we can use those.
thank you. And the chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals submitted a report saying that there was no activity last month. There's no public hearings or old business, so we'll go to new business. The first resolution is Resolution 2025-45. This is a budget transfer. Jennifer, could you pull that up on the screen? Okay, so last time you all asked me to put together a transfer proposal to help fund the ambulance to get that increase, so that this is what that does.
I'll make a motion, we approve resolution 2025-1. No, 25. 25, didn't mistake about whatever I said. Transferring $1,000 from account A1670-4 to account A4540.4. $500 from A2915.4 to 4540.4, and $3,500 from A9040.8 to A4540.4.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, resolution 2025-45 is approved. Next is resolution 2025-46. This is the 2024 Justice Court audit approval. So council members Damone and Goodman performed the annual audit of the Justice Court. This acknowledges the completion of it.
I make a motion that we approve resolution 2025-46.
Is there a
I'll second
second?
it.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, resolution 2025-46 is approved. Next is resolution 2025-47. This is authorization for me to sign the contract from the Cuyahoga Valley Ambulance Corps for 2025.
I'll make a motion, we approve resolution 2025-47, allocating funds to the Cuyahoga Valley Ambulance Corps.
I'll second that.
Okay,
Right. Ambulance services.
okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, resolution 2025-47 is approved. Next is resolution 2025-48. This is to set a public hearing for a local law, the first of 2025, called the Town of Newport Right to Farm Law. So in 2011, the comprehensive plan called for establishing the right to farm in the town of Newport in order to better prevent conflicts between farmers and non-farmers and to better enforce the New York State right to farm statutes. This is not something that the board adopted after that, so this resolution would aim to do that. Jennifer, if you scroll down, I can explain what a right to farm
Yes,
law
that would be
is.
good.
Okay, so there's a few different sections. Part of this is reinforcing the state laws that already exist, and then other parts of it are connecting it to the town and our different procedures and how it works. So section 1 talks about the legislative intent and purpose, and I'll read through this so we all understand. So the findings that the town board would be making is that the town determines that agriculture is an essential enterprise and vital industry that enhances the economic base, natural environment, and quality of life in the town of Newport. The town board further finds that in order to maintain a viable farming economy in the town, farmers must be afforded protection allowing them the right to farm. It is the general purpose and intent of this local law to maintain and preserve the rural traditions and character of the town, to protect the existence and operation of farms, to encourage the initiation, continuation, and expansion of farms and agriculture, to promote the resolution of disputes concerning agricultural practices and farm operations, and to notify potential buyers of property located in an agricultural district within the town that agricultural practices may occur that cause impacts to non-agricultural land uses. If you scroll down, there's different sections. So the first part is definitions that define the different words used in the local law. These are just standard ones that are pulled from General Code LLC, which is the sample legislation I used to develop this. It cites different New York State laws, particularly New York State Agriculture and Markets Law, and other laws that are relevant. So there's a definition for agricultural practices. If you scroll down, agricultural products, instead of citing the ones the statutes currently list, I just reference the state law because that can change, and then we wouldn't have to change this. And if you scroll down, there's more. A farm operation, it defines what that is. It defines a farmer, and then it defines when you use the word town. So those are the definitions. What the law does is it has a right to farm declaration. A lot of this is already covered by state law, but the town can reinforce that it believes in those pillars or things that the state protects. So it says farmers, as well as those employed, retained, or otherwise authorized to act on behalf of farmers, may lawfully engage in agricultural practices within the town at all such times and all such locations as are reasonably necessary to conduct the business of agriculture. For any agricultural practice, in determining the reasonableness of the time, place, and methodology of such practice, due weight and consideration shall be given to both traditional customs and procedures in the farming industry, as well as to advances resulting from increased knowledge and improved technologies. So agricultural practices conducted on farmland shall not be found to be a public or private nuisance if those practices are reasonable and necessary to the particular farm or farm operation, conducted in a manner which is not negligent or reckless, conducted in conformity with generally accepted and sound agricultural practices, conducted in conformity with all local, state, and federal laws and regulations, conducted in a manner which does not constitute a threat to public health and safety or cause injury to health or safety of any person, and conducted in a manner which does not unreasonably obstruct the free passage or use of navigable waters or public roadways. Nothing in the law is meant to be construed to prohibit an aggrieved party from recovering damages for bodily injury or a wrongful death due to a failure to follow sound agricultural practices as outlined in the section. If you scroll down. And no person, group, entity, association, partnership, or corporation will engage in any conduct or act in any manner so as to unreasonably, intentionally, knowingly, and or deliberately interfere with, prevent, or in any way deter the practice of farming within the town. Such actions may constitute an offense punishable by law with a fine of not less than $25 nor more than $150 for each day's violation or continuance of violation. In addition, an action to restrain or enjoin any violation of this local law may be brought in a court of competent jurisdiction by any person and or the town aggrieved by such violation. So it establishes a right to farm and then outlines how the town navigates that. This next part is consideration of impacts by town officers. What this does is whenever a town board or officer like the codes officer or the planning board is making a decision about something that involves towns, they have to take into account the law's language when doing that. So I'll read it. The intent and purposes of this local law shall be taken into consideration by each town officer and or board in processing any application requesting rezoning, site plan approval, and or special use permit approval when the property which is the subject of such application is located within 1,000 feet of the boundary of an existing farm operation as defined herein. Such town officer and or board shall, as part of its review of such application, determine whether appropriate and reasonable conditions which would further the purpose and intent of this local law may be prescribed or required as part of an approval of the application. Those can include but are not limited to requiring declarations, deed restrictions, or covenants which run with the land, which would notify future purchasers and owners of the subject property that owning and occupying such property might expose them to certain discomforts or inconveniences resulting from the conditions associated with agricultural practices and operations in the town. So that part is mainly designed to help people who are moving here or building houses to be more aware of what an agricultural district is. I think we've had problems in the past where people move into the agricultural zones and think of it as a residential zone. This helps have planning board and the codes department be more aware of that. Another thing is something that the state requires already, but the town can reinforce it and integrate it into its own procedures, and it's notification of real estate buyers. So I'll read it. In order to promote harmony between farmers and their neighbors, the town requires landholders and/or their agents and assigns to comply with Section 310 of Article 25 AA of the State of Agriculture and Markets Law and provide notice to prospective purchasers and occupants as follows. So they have to have this on their different things. So I won't read that whole thing, but it'll be on the website. You can read it afterwards. So you scroll down. So it says a copy of that notice shall be included as an addendum to the purchase and sale contract at the time an offer to purchase is made. This is something the state already requires. Such disclosure notice shall be signed by the prospective grantor and grantee prior to the sale, purchase, or exchange of such real property. Receipt of such disclosure notice shall be recorded on a property transfer report, a form prescribed by the State Board of Real Property Tax Services is provided for in Section 333 of the Real Property Law, and this is the part that relates to the town more so, and that in addition that this notice shall be included in building permits and plats of subdivisions submitted for approval pursuant to Town Law Section 276 and mobile home park and site plan projects. So expanding what the state requires to town things. So if someone's getting a building permit for something that's in an agricultural zone, that little blurb about what the town's views are on promoting agriculture, that will be on there, and they'll have to sign that they've seen it. Then resolutions of disputes. Should any controversy arise regarding any farm operation, the aggrieved parties may submit the controversy to the Dispute Resolution Center for mediation under the New York State Agricultural Mediation Program. And then the last two are just procedural things where if a court finds part of this to be unconstitutional, that it doesn't impact the whole law, just the parts of it that were found that way. And then it becomes effective if the Secretary of State receives it after the board approves it. So the overall goal with this is to listen to what town residents said in 2011 about promoting farming in the town and highlighting ways that New York State protects farmers, and then also applying those protections to how we do things in the town. So I know I've received concerns in the past about people feeling as though not everyone who lives in the town understands what an agricultural zone is. This local law would help with that and help preserve our farms. So what we're voting on today isn't voting on the local law itself. It's just to have a public hearing on it to hear what people have to say. But it is something that the community wanted in 2011, so I think it's worth considering.
I'll make a motion, we approve resolution 2025-8 establishing public hearing for the passage of the right to farm.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that resolution is approved. Next is resolution 2025-49. This is to set a public hearing date for local law number 2 of 2025. And this is the local law that the town board requested I develop at our last meeting. It's a local law to give the Newport Town Board final authority to approve and grant special use permits with a recommendation from the planning board. If you scroll down, I can explain it more. So the legislative intent, it is the intent of this local law to give the Newport Town Board sole authority to approve and grant special use permits in accordance with the provisions of the Newport zoning ordinance. The authority comes from Section 10 of the Municipal Home Rule Law and Section 274B of the Town Law of the State of New York. This amends Article X, Section 10.3 of our current Town of Newport zoning ordinance to give the town board the authority to review and approve and grant special use permits. And then the last two sections are just those procedural things I talked about before. I think it's important to note that I did talk to our attorney about this, and I'll share what he said. So Evan talked about, who's our town attorney, that this is the way that the town used to do it before. They actually had a two-step process where the planning board did the research and made a recommendation, and then the town board made the final decision. So Evan, when he was talking about that, he said that in his opinion, the way the town did it in the past was not proper. He doesn't think that the town should return to doing special use permits in that way. He goes on to list different towns that have it where the town board is the only one who decides it. I think he said there's one that he knows of. But then he talks about the problems with having the town board do it in relation to things like bandwidth of the town board. Obviously, the town board has other responsibilities that they have to do. The town board doesn't have the training that other boards have in doing special use permits. So I mean, you all have copies of his email, you can read it, but I wanted to say that. So this resolution would be to have a public hearing on this. If anyone has any thoughts or would like to say anything about it, you can.
In the beginning, when this first happened about 5 years ago, I think is when they changed things over. At that time, I wasn't a board member, I was the clerk. I didn't think it was a good idea to do that because we were elected officials and the people at the time on the planning board, I didn't think were educated enough to make these final decisions. So I really thought it wasn't a good idea, but I didn't have a vote in that. And now when we brought it up again, I thought, we should do this. But the more I think about it, I would have to say the new people that are on the planning board are much more educated. They've done a lot of training. They go in depth. They've been very helpful to people trying to get special permits. And again, like you said, we do have a lot of other things that board members have to look into. I don't think we could really give it the time that the planning board members give it. So I would have to say I've changed my mind. I think the planning board should be the one to make the final say. But there isn't there, if we did disagree, if there was something that we really thought was wrong, do we have an avenue to go to discuss it or to stop it?
I don't think so. No, I mean being involved in the process is one way you go to the planning board meetings. But you can't override what the planning board says. I think some towns have it where you can appeal their decisions to like the zoning board of appeals. But I don't know that our zoning ordinance has a procedure for that written out.
I think ours is set up where they disagree with the planning board's decision, they can go to the ZBA. But if they, if they disagree with the ZBA, your option is to go into Superior Court. So I'm pretty sure that was built in when we switched it over from Town Board Authority to the Planning Board Authority. That's the reason that we didn't give it to the ZBA. Because some towns have the ZBA that has the final say. We wanted an avenue where if they disagreed with the planning board, then they had an option to go to the ZBA and appeal. And I think you were one of the ones that brought that up. So it is in our system. And of course, your last resort is you can get into Superior
Well,
Court, which is costly.
Does anyone else on the board have any thoughts?
Maybe I would just like to clarify that John's right, that they do, but it's usually the applicant or somebody who has a vested interest in with a project that can appeal it to the ZBA. It can't just be anybody in the town. If I'm saying that incorrectly,
No, it's an aggrieved party.
yeah, it's gotta be an agreed party. So in other words, somebody on the town board, if you don't live next to the property, then, or if you aren't an agreed person, then you would not be able to have our decision appealed, or, you know, to go to the ZBA. And I'm just telling you that so that you don't mistakenly think that, you know, you could go and do that.
No, I think that's the way it was set up. That it has to be the aggrieved party. It has to be the
Correct.
person who.
Correct. But I don't think a
Refused.
town board
That's not
member
the
can
town board.
qualify as an agreed person unless you live next to the project.
I doubt very much that they would be
I
recognized in
just
a
didn't
court
want,
of
I just
law.
didn't want anybody to assume that that was gonna be the
No,
right.
no, well, I don't believe anybody on the board assumed that. I believe everybody realizes it has to be the aggrieved party.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
I think there should be something that's in between, where the town board is more, aware of what's going on, what's being considered.
What do you like, communication or?
Better communication, yeah. Knowing what they're working on, you know, and being abreast of its development. That's basically what the issue is.
Yeah, I agree with Kurt. I think there needs to be better communication on what's being proposed. You know, because what happens is application gets approved, then all of a sudden you start getting calls from people that, well, I didn't know anything about it. Well, you know, maybe you did and maybe you didn't. You're only hearing one side of the story. I think more communication needs to be available to the board members from the planning board, so that at least you get an idea of what's going on, and everybody that's supposed to be notified wasn't notified. You know, rather than change everything back to the way it used to be, and that's not the way towns do it anymore. Simply because of the workload and the high-paying jobs that we have.
Basically like an
Right,
amendment
Smitty?
to what we have now.
Patty, do you have any thoughts?
So this is just going to be, we're gonna have a public hearing about this.
If you approved it.
Yeah. So that's, I know, you know, I always thought that like the planning board would present their findings on a special use permit application and go over it with the town board, and then the town board would have the say to say yes, issue the permit or not. That's kind of what it was. And then on the, one of our former codes officers said that it wasn't like all the towns did, so we changed it, but I still think I agree with them that the town board should have, I think they should have a say in the issuing of the permits.
But is the town board not permitted to come to the public hearings? And, I mean, I know when we did the Dollar General, I mean, John was very vocal at the Dollar General meeting.
Well, there's a lot of times that you may not know what's going on, but we don't,
But I
I don't wanna hear it after it's already been approved. All we're saying is
Yeah, we're not, let's not do a back and forth now. I think there's ways to address those.
well, I believe the town board should have some notification as to what is on the agenda. I'm not so sure that we need to have final approval. I mean, I don't think we need to go back to the way it was done, because we'd be, according to our attorney, we'd be the only town in Herkimer and Oneida County that reserved the right for the town board to have final say. And like I said, there's so much other things that have to be done. That my concern is the same as Kurt's. That I just feel we should be more on.
More
in
abreast
line
of what's
with
going on.
What's on the agenda? What kind of plans do you have? And then we can ask questions.
Yes, I know. You have meetings once a month and we should be, one of us should attend them.
No, we actually came to the town board and we told you about the meeting. We asked you guys to attend. We actually asked you for input. We wanted to know before we had a
Well,
public hearing.
the problem we run into is not all of us are available on Thursday night, and that's when you have your meeting. So all I'm saying is we need some kind of notice before. If we can attend the meeting, great. Can't attend the meeting, well then, you know, at least we have some notice. That's all I'm saying.
Even a simple report, you know.
I will say
But
that
we welcome your input. We would want you, when we ask for you to give us your input, we really want it. I mean, we're not gonna ignore it. When John had problems with the Dollar General, we addressed his problems. We took to, you know, we take your concerns as legitimate. I don't know why we wouldn't.
Okay, so I will say Colleen has communicated with me in the past about what's been going on and has worked with me on things. And so I think I can set up ways to get that information out to you all better. I know we have emails now, so maybe that will be helpful, but for having John.
All we
figure out
want is
ways
just
to get
what's on the
information.
agenda.
I mean, like
that's all.
the slaughterhouse. I heard about that possibly, but then I was sick and I didn't hear any more until I come back to the meeting and it was all approved and done and I didn't know anything about it. I mean, I had heard that they were thinking about it, but it was operational and I was like, and still didn't see any paperwork about it. That Colleen had said that she had submitted to us. I didn't see it.
It was in one of the meetings, I don't remember which one. Was it in the December, November meeting, January?
It was actually, so he actually came in a month before. And so we sat down with them, we went through everything with them, and then we advised you that there was an application. We advised you.
I remember it was in like December.
Well, December's when we had the meeting, 18th. But.
Well, I mean, it was in our December informational packet.
The actual decision.
Yes, yes.
But when we got the paperwork for the application, we notified you for back in December.
You can do a
Oh, I never
motion
got
to
a
roll
notification
call
about
vote.
Whether we want to.
notification. The only thing I ever saw was the information that was in the December meeting, which was the approval.
It was all done, yeah.
That's when I knew about it, and then the phone started.
The application comes to the town, so maybe that's where the breakdown is when the application comes in.
We'll discuss ways to better communication. I think we can do it.
On that note, I'll make a motion that we set a public hearing date,
Or we do a roll call vote.
a roll call vote on setting a date
Yes.
for the local law
Pleasure.
number 2 of 2025 to give final authority to approve or grant special use permit to the town with recommendations from the planning board.
Okay. And so just to clarify that you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but this is a motion from Josie too. We're just voting on the resolution.
Yeah, now the meeting is tentatively set for April the 14th at 7:15, correct?
Yeah. So voting yes would do a public hearing. Voting no would just not do a public hearing. We wouldn't consider this anymore. So we'll call each of you. Council member Curtis, you have a question?
So we'd be tabling this resolution?
No,
No.
we're voting on it. So voting yes, we'd have a public hearing to talk about it more and consider voting on it, or you could just vote no and we can scrap it.
No.
So Councilmember Brooker,
No.
Councilmember Coleman,
Yes.
Councilmember Damone,
No.
Councilmember Goodman,
Yes.
and I'll vote no. And the reasoning is because our attorney advised against that. So we're gonna stick with the planning board doing that. We won't have a public hearing on that local.
I thought we were making the motion.
Oh, no. Which one did?
So it's
No.
over and done with.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so that resolution does not pass, is not approved. Next on the agenda is resolution 2025-50. This is authorization to pay the general fund bills. So this is vouchers 41 to voucher 64 in the amount of $234,959. The reasoning for the high amount, if you're wondering, is because this month we're paying the different fire departments as well as the ambulance service in the town.
I'll make a motion, we approve resolution 2025-50, authorizing the payment of the town general fund and from vouchers 41 to 64 in the amount of $234,959.06.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, resolution 2025-50 is approved. Next is resolution 2025-51. This is authorization to pay the highway fund bills.
I'll make a motion while we do this. I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll make a motion to pay the highway fund bills, which involves vouchers number 22 to 38 in the amount of $33,031.52.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, resolution 2025-51 is approved.
Yep.
Does anyone have any announcements to make?
The only thing I'd like to say is the highway department's had a rough year. I mean, we appointed a acting superintendent or supervisor on December the 24th, and it started snowing on the 24th, and it hasn't stopped. So whoever works for the town, you have my sympathy. Because you can't work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that's basically what it ended up being.
Yeah, well, crazy hours.
Constantly, you know, we're gonna need to put sleeping quarters into place.
Isn't there 911 law, actually, you're supposed to have a night crew.
Well, we had, they come out at 7 in the morning, stay till 7 the next morning.
I
So
know,
we had a night crew, but it was, I mean, it was
there
really,
was nobody out.
it was a tough, well, the town really should have done what some of the other towns did when they declared a state of emergency in the town and restricted travel. That's what they should have done, and unfortunately, they didn't do it. So it causes, it can lead into serious problems when it comes to litigation.
That's when they called me, come pull them out.
Well, not only that, but I mean, somebody has an accident on one of the roads that should have been maintained because you didn't declare a state of emergency, you're subject to litigation.
What happens, like, and this is personal, but what happens, like, my son is the postal person who has to get to the post office and coming down off that steep hill. And if you guys aren't there, I mean, we've got to report by, 8 a.m. And sometimes during these storms, they've been having to come in at 7
I
a.m.
wish you'd tell the postmaster in Poland that, because they were closed. State of emergency, they were closed.
They actually did, so they didn't deliver mail for the first time. He's been working there for a while now. This is the first time ever they did.
But I mean, you know,
But they still had to show up at work, so he still had to go to work.
well, they didn't show up.
All right.
It was a tough winter.
Okay, Patty made a motion to adjourn. Is
Well,
there?
before
I'll
we do
second
that,
that motion.
All those in
I just
favor?
wanna say that, the highway department did a great job this year. Kudos to you.
All those in
Roads are
favor?
great. I'll second that motion to adjourn.
I already did.
We'll
Now
adjourn
we can
at
talk.
7:50 p.m. Thank you.
We'll keep talking.